fun is back! Oh yes, siree! It's the 2600 from Atari.
Businesses are inclined to make money. Simple idea, I know. The cross-marketing stream of cash between movies and games on the Atari was a big deal back then. There's more than a handful of movie tie-ins on the system, which sometimes had movies released around the same time or were big enough IPs to cash in and cash out on. Some games are well remembered while others were never even officially released. Bad financial decisions and poor quality control contributed to that. So with this video, let's appreciate some horror-themed movie tie-ins. The Atari throughout its lifespan had a large library of rudimentary but charming titles. Today we take a look at an imaginative take on the Aliens licensed by Fox Video Games. This is Aliens on the Atari 2600. It's a Pac-Man clone. Not particularly scary, I know. You play as the last human survivor stomping out alien eggs while avoiding the nasty titular creatures roaming around the ship. Armed with just a dinky flamethrower, you're out clearing out mazes, picking up bonuses, and using the pulsars to gobble up aliens whenever possible. After each maze clear, you get a bonus level to out-juke the aliens for extra points. It's easier said than done, but it is pretty fun. Each level gets progressively more difficult, going faster and faster until you die or go on to play something else. While it's not exactly breaking the mold, it is a decent time waster. The Alligator People was a 1959 sci-fi horror movie later adapted into a video game by Fox Video Games, but never got officially released. A prototype was later uncovered, but mislabeling on the cartridge actually made it mixed up with another unreleased title, The Planet of the Apes. The true Alligator People was later found under the label Gator, and it's actually a pretty decent game despite it being shelved. You play as one of the film's protagonists, actually a syringe, set off to save your friends, now turned into alligator people on the swamp grounds of Louisiana. In order to do that, you have to collect enough serums while maneuvering through the game's moving walls and the real alligators roaming about. Game A is pretty challenging, but Game B has unlimited lives with no stakes, so if you want to get through it with no consequences, do that. The game apparently hadn't been well received during testing, and Game B's unlimited lives have actually made the higher-ups pretty mad. Go figure. The Earth Dies Screaming is a 1964 sci-fi horror film that was later made into a video game in 1983. It's another movie tie-in developed by Fox Video Games, and a pretty strange one at that. It particularly stinks of a tacked-on license versus quick cash. Other computer ports at the time had renamed it as Final Orbit, with another storyline that was placed in the manual altogether. Your objective is simple enough: save the Earth from diabolical trillions. In your battle tank, you're shooting UFOs out of the sky, taking hits from opposing forces, and healing up any damage by attacking attack bases on the ground. The HUD has color indicators to tell you whether the tank or the Earth is in trouble. It's fairly easy to keep your attack button pressed continuously as you gain points through your runs and die from getting worn out from all the battle damage. It's a cool game visually, but it has very little to do with the actual source material, and will wear thin after a little bit. The Entity. It's yet another Fox Video Game produced title that went unreleased. I really don't want to punch down on a prototype, but there isn't much to this game other than concept. Gameplay consists of you closing the walls for this ghost to rise above each floor. It's a weird concept, but I kinda get it. You're exercising this spirit, it seems, which bounces about more violently as the walls close in. The player uses the control stick to bring the walls closer to one another from left to right under a time limit. It's not very fun considering there's not much to it, and the bouncing ghost sound gets annoying real fast. This is really stretching the concept thin as far as it goes, and it's not really a recommendation in any capacity. What's the Entity even about, anyways? So according to Wikipedia, the film follows a single mother in Los Angeles who is raped and tormented by an invisible poltergeist-like entity in her home. Why would they even adapt this for a kid's console? It's like putting Cannibal Holocaust on the speak and spell. No wonder it went unreleased. Here we have Gremlins, developed by Atari Inc. This title is a fun mix of Activision's Kaboom interspersed with shoot-em-up segments. The cute Mogwai are ready to get the drop in on your food, and you gotta catch them quick for points. Afterwards, you have to deal with the naughty gremlins who'll take your lives away if they get too close to you. There's flash cubes you can use on the other end of the screen to momentarily stun the gremlins, but eventually, they'll keep coming back, and sometimes they'll even multiply. The game has pretty distinctive graphics for its time. There's even a 2-player alternating mode as well. It's mostly just a game of score attack, which at the time was fairly average on the system. Today this game has become somewhat of a collector's item due to its IP licensing. Sure, Gremlins copies a lot of ideas from other games, but they're at least good ideas that work. Here we have a 2-for-1. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween, developed by Wizard Studio, both released in 1983 and 1985 on the Atari 2600. Wizard Video was a home video distribution company of both of the movies at the time, and they decided to enter the world of gaming. I'm really not sure what I could say that AVGN hasn't, but I'll try. You spend your time racking up points by killing your victims while avoiding various objects and obstacles. You're trying to be as gas conscientious as possible. The economy is tough, and even Leatherface knows that wasting it on a fence or cow skull is bad. If you run out of gas, it's game over. Revving up the chainsaw and going in for the kill is pretty fun, even if you're going to get stuck a lot in most places thanks to Leatherface's fat head. The game has a certain atmosphere to it, as minimalist as it is. Halloween is the better game arguably. You play as Laurie Strode, or the babysitter running away from Michael Myers, or the homicidal maniac according to the manual. Gameplay consists of taking the children away to safety without either you or the child getting harmed. The deaths are rather grisly, and the presentation as a whole is a lot better than Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but both games are both pretty average games. The explicit violence from these games were, at the time, considered controversial, where many retailers refused to sell the games. What made things worse is to lower costs, Wizard Video started to cheaply label their later cartridges with Sharpie rather infamously. These titles never had a chance behind a counter with the stores that did sell them. Eventually, Wizard Video stopped producing video game content, and these titles are now considered pricey collector's items at most. For the last game on the list, we have The Towering Inferno from 1982. The Towering Inferno was a disaster movie which later got adapted by US Games, given the license by 20th Century Fox. It's pretty fun as you're racing against the clock against a burning building and you have to try to save as much survivors as you can. If you take too much time though, there'll be nobody left to save, as the erratic flames are all around the building and serve as your main obstacles. You have to bust open the door to open up the survivors and get the hell out of there. The introduction scene is great and is consistently used every time as you make floor progress between each level. The controls for the Towering Inferno are a bit squirrely, and the flames will catch you by surprise rather cheaply. You have a water gun, but the flames will move in and out of your way, being really tricky. It's a decent game by all measures, but unfortunately, US Games folded under the video game crash of 1983. As I did research for this video, I came across a very interesting quote by the spokesperson Ronald Luttrell, and he claimed that none of our games became a hit, and they actually had dropped any development thereafter during the crash because they just weren't making any capital. It's a sad end, but not an uncommon one after the video game bubble burst for the Atari 2600. It's important to note that the Atari system is a console of simplicity with its internal design. There's a lot to appreciate with the ingenuity for developers to work within system limitations and the one-button control stick. Some developers got creative while others played it arguably way too safe on the system. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe at Supp Repo, aka Suppository Repository.